All right, welcome to the latest installment of the Origins series presented by the AMS Board for Operational Government Meteorologist, or BOGM. My name is Keith Sherburn. I'm the chair of BOGM, and I'm joined today by two members of the National Weather Service Forecast Office in Boulder, Colorado, Ayesha Davis and Jennifer Stark. So thank you both for being here. I want to jump right in. I know we have a limited amount of time here. We have two people instead of one like I normally do, so I want to make sure we get to all of our topics. Our audience for these interviews might range from students who are interested in jobs in operational government meteorology to professionals who may currently work in other agencies, might not be familiar with the day-to-day operations of the Weather Service. So first off, Ayesha, what does a typical day as a meteorologist at NWS Boulder look like?
Yeah, and you could probably answer this too because you've been in for a while. So I guess at Boulder, it's kind of exciting, but a roll of dice at the same time. It can range from a typical day of just doing the forecast package, like days 1 through 7, or it could be a wildfire, something like that, that we have to send a forecast for, or it could be DSS related, like going to the CSU games and stuff like that. So it could kind of range between those things, I think. What would you say?
Well, for me, I'm not an operational meteorologist day by day anymore, but I agree with you that it
Mhm.
really is very dynamic here in this office. I mean, we have year round weather concerns, severe weather, winter weather, fire weather. We do a lot of support for like search and rescue operations with a lot of tourists and visitors hiking in the mountains around here.
Mhm.
Um, Doing more and more on-site decision support services, and that's really changing the dynamic in our office. So, and I think that's one of the things I love the most about the weather service is that it's never the same thing twice.
Yeah, that's true. And you can't really do it anywhere else, right? This is a very unique place to do that at.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Jennifer, you noted that you're not in the rotation anymore. You're not operational meteorologist, maybe day to day. What does a typical day as a meteorologist in charge look like?
And again, no typical day. I mean, it could be anything from something that demands my attention immediately, some type of emergency, something that maybe I have to report back to region or national headquarters on quickly. It could be a quiet day, and maybe I'm working on some of my own projects that I have. So I'm a facilitator for Central Region Lead and working on developing training for folks that come to leadership training in Kansas City. So that's one of the things I try to work on. Really managing my time is interesting in this role because you would think I have a lot of free time, but I often don't. I'm usually quite busy, and then I have to drop everything to help somebody else or answer a question. And then in this building, it is very dynamic because we can have a lot of visitors, we can have VIP tours coming through. We just had a congressional staff visit last week, getting prepared for that and kind of running through what does that look like and interacting with other labs in the building as we host those VIP visitors. So it's just, you never know what the day is going to bring. Some days are more busy and hectic than others. Can be a little bit quiet where maybe I have a little more downtime to work on projects or mentor others or, things that I enjoy doing, but often time is not my own.
Yeah,
Yep.
I would say too, you step in a lot when it comes to helping us with interviews and things about the day-to-day office. So like high level stuff in NWS is really helpful for us when it comes to helping with operations. So even though you're not in operations, you're kind of still there in a
Yeah.
way. So yeah,
And I do like to help out in operations, especially during severe weather. That's probably my
yeah,
favorite time to help out in ops. And I occasionally do work an operational shift.
yeah. We just worked like last week.
Yeah, yeah,
So and there was a fire. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, you brought up a lot of topics here in those answers that I wanted to get to at some point in the interview, but you've both worked at other weather forecast offices as well. You kind of noted that Boulder's a little bit different. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Well, do you want to go first? You want to?
No,
Okay.
you start. I want to hear
I'm
what you have to
thinking.
say.
Well, we almost have worked in the same offices, I guess, because I worked at NWS Cheyenne, which is in Wyoming before this, and it was a little bit different. We had a different type of partners, different type of audience. We dealt with a lot of truckers. That was a big thing, especially across I-80. If you don't know, it's just a straight line into Wyoming, and the wind blows crazy there. So that's something that we had to take care of a lot. And you too, because you worked there. So it was just a different type of audience. So I mean, you had very skilled people knowing winter weather, things like that. In Wyoming, they knew the risks. They knew things that they knew how to take care of their farms, like prep their cows, things like that. So we were sending agricultural emails about drought, rainfall, things like that. So it was a little bit different as far as like Denver, where we have so many partners. There's a ton of partners in Denver. So it's just a little bit different and different ways of speaking to them too, I would say, because we have partners who are fire savvy versus partners who are more water savvy, doing things with rivers and things like that. So it's just a little bit different. It's kind of the same spice, but just sent in a different package. Um, kind of. I guess that's how I would describe it.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of both external and internal are the differences in this weather forecast office. So, um, we have a huge population center with the Denver metro area, but also all along the I-25 corridor and the Front Range just has shown enormous growth and enormous population explosion in the past probably 20 years. And serving the needs of the emergency managers and having large outdoor events with a lot of people exposed to weather hazards, as well as the tourism and travel industry, people that come to this area and they may not be familiar with how quickly our weather can change. People hiking up on the 14ers and not knowing that they need to get off before the first thunderstorm of the day forms, which is fairly early. The burned areas and the flash flood and debris flow issues that we can have on those and adjusting for those. So really a lot of external demands on us, but then internally in the building, we're located with other NOAA Boulder labs, and we do interact with them occasionally. I do, especially with the lab directors in like managing the building, but with the VIP visitors that we get and tours and working with the outreach committee for the building, it's a lot of fun, but really can be a little demanding sometimes when we're already busy with weather. So we have to kind of manage that and manage expectations of what we can do and what we can't do sometimes.
I would say you're like the first line of defense when it comes to those new VIPs because they've never been in a forecast office before. So they're learning all these things from like Jennifer, and then they see us on shift, and then they learn stuff about what programs we're using and things like that. So this is their first time interacting and seeing different agencies work. So it's kind of cool because they get to really experience a different side of the government, and they're like, oh, this is what they're doing in the weather service. They get to see all the new products in the building. Like we we saw DESI for the first time in our building a year ago, and we got to experience how to forecast with DESI. So that was kind of cool because you guys brought that to us, and then we got to use it
Right.
and test it out, which was cool.
And hazard services, they have the test beds in the building, but we also have people that coordinate with the hazard services developers that are right down the hall. So it's just really dynamic. And I do think that sometimes with the VIP, whether it's congressional visitors or even throughout NOAA or other federal agencies, when they come to our weather forecast office, I do hope that we're representing the weather service as a whole very well if we are their first visit to a weather forecast office.
Yeah, I think they come excited.
I do
You
too.
kind of blow their minds showing them the different types of products.
Yeah. Oh, and oh, by the way, we have a small thing called Denver International Airport
Yeah.
here too.
The thing you flew into today, yeah, we're giving forecasts for that.
That's and it's not an easy place to forecast for.
Oh no, it's not.
No, it's tough out there. Get a lot of tornadoes right in that area
And the
by the
Denver
airport.
cyclone.
Cyclone, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, they were just talking about that when I was out there. I was like, oh boy.
Well, we'll see. Maybe we'll get some today. Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of the 122 weather forecast offices are standalone offices. Boulder's very much not a standalone office, as you mentioned. Very collaborative environment with other NOAA labs. Space Weather Prediction Center is there as well. Such a cool place to visit and work, I assume too. But so this being the Origins series, I want to take a step back here and kind of talk about how you got to where you are. So Ayesha, I'll start with you. Just talk about your journey to get to Boulder, how you first got interested in meteorology, where that took you in terms of education, and then how you got there professionally.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't a true weather weenie. People have that one storm that they're like, I gotta do this for the rest of my life. I was not like that. I did like a lot of clouds and earth, like environmental earth science in like eighth grade. And I was in Georgia at the time. And I asked my teacher, hey, are we gonna keep learning about this in next year? And she's like, nope, this is it. This is the end of everything. We go on to another science after this. And I was kind of mad. And I was like, wow, I want to learn more. And then so I went to college. I looked up colleges in meteorology, and Florida State was one of them. And so I was like, okay, I'll go there. I'll start. I liked hurricanes. I liked a lot of water, learned about hurricanes. And then I was like, oh, I really want to forecast. Let me put down my top places I want to go. And actually, Cheyenne was on the list for my top five. It was like Houston, Cheyenne, somewhere in DC, because I was in DC at the time. And then somewhere in the South, I think it was like Florida or something. And then the first interview I got was at Cheyenne. And then actually, Pup interviewed me. Yeah. I think you interviewed me. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And so I still had the High Plains in my top five, but I still had some Southern offices. But Cheyenne called me back and they said they wanted to take me. So I was so excited. Never lived west of the US ever. First time ever even going was the first time I drove to live there. So I was like, oh, I'm going to take this chance. This is going to be fun. And my first year, it was fun. Like the people I met in that office, they're still like my lifelong friends. I still talk to them all the time. I still chat them up in GChat all the time. So it was a really great first year, and where I was like, oh, I really like forecasting. Getting used to shift work was hard though. Getting used to that was hard on my body. I never really experienced midnight shifts before, but I had a lot of good friends in that office, and they really helped me. And they got me into fire weather, and now I'm like a fire weather weenie because I really like that part and drought. So it kind of just, the building blocks kind of just fell the way I had people mentor me. I had people take me under their wing and show me things. And I think that's why I started to really love forecasting and like the environment of forecasting. So I really like that. And then I started getting into more school talks and things like that. And I really enjoyed that because that was something that I never got to experience growing up. So I was like, if I can give that to someone while they're like younger and they can feel the joys of what I was feeling when I was younger, that is amazing. So I love doing school talks in Denver, and here in Boulder, our management is really happy for us to get out and see the different schools in different places, especially in Aurora. That's an underrepresented population there, and we've been really going at it for that for the last 2 years, and I've really enjoyed it a lot. So Yay, I'm happy with that. I'm very proud to say that we are very active in that. So yeah, that's my story.
Yeah.
Very cool. Great to hear. Jennifer, what you got?
Okay. Well, let's see. Where do you want to start? I've been around a long time, so um, like Ayesha, I really wasn't, one of those early young kids that grew up knowing I wanted to be a meteorologist. We have a lot of those throughout the Weather Service. People just had it in their blood, but that wasn't me. I was kind of like a well-rounded student. I did really well in math, and I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. So when I first went to college, I went um, just kind of a liberal arts major and just took a bunch of basic classes. But my dad died that first year when I was in college. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do next, but I ended up going to a community college which offered a professional pilot program. So I took a lot of classes and got my private pilot's license, had time in simulators, time under the hood with IFR training, did some time flying under the hood, but it's very, very expensive to rent planes and have flight instructors, and they really don't give you a lot of student loans for that. So I took a meteorology for aviators class during that, and I also blew the curve in my math class. So, which was all guys except for like 3 or 4 women, and the instructor was like, "Wow, you blew the curve." So I decided to go back to school for meteorology, and I went back to the University of Northern Colorado and went into meteorology. And while I was a student there, I met the MIC at the time in Cheyenne. His name was Bill Parker, and he hired me as a student meteorologist in Cheyenne. And then when I graduated, I went to Des Moines, Iowa, and I was there for 4 years. Then I went back to Cheyenne, Wyoming during the modernization of the Weather Service. So that was like early to mid 90s. And I was a general forecaster there and then promoted on station to a lead forecaster. So in total, I was in Cheyenne for 7 years. Started a Women in Science program there that's still going on at the University of Wyoming. Then I went to Topeka, Kansas as the warning coordination meteorologist, and that was a really big leap in my career. It was very, very busy office with severe weather. I think I probably worked way too many hours. It was hard on my young family at the time. Also started a Women in Science program there at Washburn University, and it's still going on. But I knew that my work hours were taking a toll on my kids, so I ended up going back. Well, I applied for Pueblo, the meteorologist in charge position. I got that, and I was there for 11 years, kept my kids in high school, middle school, and high school, got them through there. And then my dream job came open in Boulder, and I was lucky enough to land it. It is competitive bid process. It's not like you just get selected. You have to vie for each position. And along the way, I've done some other stints. I've worked at Weather Service headquarters on a project. I've worked on the 5 through 12 program. I worked at Central Region headquarters as kind of the acting regional WCM for several weeks. And I also worked at the Weather Service office in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee, which is not actually in Milwaukee, but was there as like a temporary promotion, temporary fill-in. And then I also worked at the National Transportation Safety Board for several months on a detail. So I've had kind of a varied career, but definitely came out of operational meteorology. I've spent pretty much my entire career in operational meteorology.
Yeah, you've worn a lot of different hats there.
Yeah.
That's quite the CV that you've presented.
Right?
Yeah.
But a couple of things you mentioned there, I think, segue nicely into the next topic I wanted to discuss. You mentioned the math class that you broke the curve, that it was dominated by men. I spoke to Katie McGee earlier in the year as part of this series. She's one of a handful of science and operations officers in the Weather Service that are women. That number is increasing, fortunately, which is a good thing. But I'm curious, since you've had a pretty good career, a pretty long career in the Weather Service, how's the landscape of the Weather Service changed in the context of diversity over the course of your career?
Oh, are you saying that I'm old, Keith?
No, just experience wise.
That's well seasoned.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I tell my kids that I'm old and they just tell me that I'm hip.
Yeah.
But anyway,
There you go.
so
Yeah.
so it has changed a lot. I will tell you, when I was in Cheyenne and Des Moines, I was the pregnant female on shift. I was the oddity, probably the lone single person, to have gone through that, working rotating shift work right up until the end, till both kids were delivered. Having to find childcare for these really strange hours and navigate that with a husband at the time that was also working. He ended up staying home when I became the warning coordination meteorologist, which just worked better for our family. I don't know that that was a role that he always really wanted or not, but it really saved our family. But in Cheyenne and in Des Moines, we had several other women that I worked with, especially in Des Moines. We had quite a few meteorologist interns at the time, and many of them have quit. I think there's only one other person that I worked with that's still there, maybe two in the weather service. I think it's hard for young women, especially women of childbearing age, to work rotating shift work. And even though I went through it, I don't know that I, relish the thought of other people going through that. It's really difficult. And then I remember my first shift where it was all females, and that was when I was in Topeka. I was working with the lead forecaster and a Met intern at the time. That's the first time all three women were in charge of the show. And it has gotten better, but I still think there's some challenges related to shift work and diverse workforce, both gender diversity, but also family makeup. There's a lot of single parents, there's a lot of grandparents that are caring for their grandkids. Just attracting people, especially this younger generation, that may not want to work rotating shift work and have that dominate their life and their families' lives.
Yeah, I could agree with that. You're speaking my language.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the weather service, but it is tough when you want to have a family and start a family. You're trying to figure out how are you going to balance that. I mean, who is going to help you out in those times of the needs, especially if you moved out to a place where your family isn't.
Yep.
And
we always did. We really never lived near family when our kids were little either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I can relate to a lot of those issues as well. And Ayesha, as an early career meteorologist, you have a little bit of a different perspective at this point. So what more do you think the NWS could do to support DEIA within the agency, or these early career meteorologists as well who want to have families and are kind of struggling with the environment at the moment?
Yeah, I think we're on the right track. When I first came in, we didn't have the flexibilities of like flexing shifts or taking restorative breaks, things like that. That was not a thing when I was in. I joined in 2020. So we're already kind of moving faster than the government track, right? We're doing pretty good. So I think for now, I think something that needs to happen is making more of the NWS more attractive for younger folks. I think the 5 through 12 pay bumps are great. That is something you don't see in any other agency. You can't get that anywhere else. So that is attractive for sure. But when it comes to like diversity, like as far as like race or gender, I think there needs to be a little bit more leaning on those groups that are underrepresented. So getting to those schools where they're at, it doesn't have to be at HBCU, but it could be a predominantly big meteorology school, and trying to get those people into those WFOs, those places that they can see nearby, and creating a relationship with those schools. And I think that will really help. And AMS does that a lot. I know that you guys do that a lot on your board, and my board does as well. You've been on webinars where you're helping students in AMS. So those things are great. And just trying to tie those things together with the NWS would be so helpful, I think. Just more involvement in that early career.
Yeah. And I think retention is a separate issue.
Yes.
we can hire folks, but how do we make them want to stay?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
especially been a big issue lately.
I think a lot of that comes from the dynamic in each office. And sometimes maybe it comes off as like, oh, there's not a lot of women. So there a lot of talk, casual talk is sports, right? Sometimes in the office that you're at. Because when I was in Cheyenne, a lot of people just talked about sports. But when I had my friend come on shift, she was a female, she would bring up, oh, these are the foods I'm eating, these are the things I'm doing, these are the hikes I'm taking. It was just different conversations. So a lot of it is just making sure that environment you're in is more, accepting of different roles and different people.
Yeah, I agree. I'm happy to talk about sports or food or hiking. So yeah,
Food
that sounds
all
like
day.
a lot of fun. Oh yeah, food for sure. Yeah. So you mentioned your professional service through AMS. I know you're heavily involved in Braid. Can you talk a little bit about your leadership experience there, Ayesha?
Yeah, Braid is pretty big now. It used to be a little bit smaller. It used to be called the Board on Women and Minorities. Everyone's heard about that before, but we expanded it to Braid because we wanted to include all these different types of representation. So when it comes to just not just like, for example, Hispanic or Latino, it could be accessibility, it could be things as far as Coriolis, where it's LGBTQ, IA. So there's different types of braids that kind of braids in together. So that's why we named it Braid. And of course, we love acronyms. So it's the Board on Representation, Accessibility, Inclusion, and diversity. There you go. So all that in one go. So that's basically what Braid is, if you're not familiar. But I enjoyed leading Braid for about 2 years. We did a lot of things like host the Women's Luncheon, things like webinar series. A lot of that comes from the people underneath Braid, the leaders underneath Braid. So me just leading is just me making sure things are on track to go. But the real leaders are the people in Braid. They're helping making those webinars and making those series, making things happen behind the scenes before we all get to the annual meeting, right? Because it doesn't just happen when we get to the annual meeting. All these things have to be prepared before we come. So all these things we've been doing recently have been joint things with early career. That's another board if you're interested in AMS. Joint things in the student conference. We're trying to do that more to make sure we kind of expand in different places. But there will always be a Coriolis reception, women's luncheon, things like that. But we are trying to see some new things, kind of expand in different ways. Like, do we need to do a luncheon, or is there ways we can serve the students better to kind of get them involved in different stuff? So maybe we pay for a resume workshop for 20 students instead of having a luncheon. So there are different things that we're trying to kind of expand on. And I'm still involved. Tevin now is the Braid chair, so Tevin Wooten. And I'm just kind of behind the scenes making sure that he gets everything he needs and helping him with AMS staff. So yeah, I think you saw me running with a chicken with a head cut off at Denver.
She did great.
Moving around. But yeah, that's my leadership with Braid, just making sure all the pieces line up together. But if you have any ideas, feel free to message me. Let me know if you're watching this interview. Let me know if you have any ideas. So taking any idea that comes to me for sure.
Yeah, such important efforts and really cool ideas that you had there in terms of serving students and so forth. I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with next, but thank you for your service in that capacity to the community as well. It's much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I don't do anything. I just talk to people. Seems like, but so I wanted to take a little bit of a turn here, talk about mentoring a bit. Jennifer, I know you're heavily involved in the NWS mentoring program. That's kind of where we really first got to talking, I think, and you've been a great mentor to me over the last couple of years. I just wanted to ask, what is it like to serve as a mentor for a lot of different folks in different stages of their career? And who were some of your mentors along the way to help get you where you are?
Wow, that could be a long list. I had a lot of really good mentors. I still have mentors. I mean, I still draw on the wisdom of others to help me with problems, questions that I need to answer, to help me through difficulties. I definitely don't have it all figured out. And I think that mentorship is still really important as we go through our lives and through our careers. So to me, to be able to serve in that capacity, I hope I can just help a few people. The Weather Service Mentoring Program, I've been fortunate to be part of that. I am also a facilitator with Central Region Lead, and you get to mentor and guide a large group of folks through some leadership topics and training and to help kind of a larger group. I like both mentoring on an individual level, but also kind of that group setting, that classroom setting. But one thing I warn my mentees when they select me for the NWS mentoring program is you're not going to get rid of me when the program ends. We're going to keep in touch. I want to remain a resource. I will tell you that Bill Parker, the first MIC that I ever had in the Weather Service, I had lunch with him in summer of 2023 to ask him about some career advice, what he thought I should do. Of course, he tells me that he can't give me any more advice, but I still like to visit with him. And I stay in touch with a lot of my different mentors, and it becomes a little bit challenging when a lot of my mentors have retired, but I also will tell you that even my mentoring relationships with younger meteorologists or younger people in the agency or students, I learn a heck of a lot from those folks too. So it's never one-sided. It is definitely two-way, and it's definitely beneficial.
Very cool. Ayesha, any mentors that you want to call out?
I come in this office all the time and be like, what should I do? But I would say, yeah, I had a few before coming into NWS that were like, maybe you should do NWS. Maybe that might be the path for you. Dr. Jenkins is in Penn State. He was one of my mentors. Kind of got me into the whole hurricane risk factor, social science, meteorology ties in together. Dr. Vernon Morris, he was great. He was at Howard. And then when I got into NWS, there's a few that, like Aviva Braun, Jennifer, I tell you, I come in here all the time. I'm like, hey, Jennifer, I don't know. I don't know what to do. Yeah, it's just small. I wouldn't even call some people mentors. They're almost like just like people I look up to. They're almost like, I like what you're doing, so I really want to get to that point in my life where like I want to follow that path. So they're almost like not mentors. They're just like role models, I guess, that I really want to follow. So yeah, some of those people for sure. I'm forgetting names. Felicia Bowser is one as well. Mm-hmm. I really like her. She's a MIC in Tallahassee mm-hmm. now. So yeah, she's I think she might be one of the only Black female MICs in the country. So she's a really good resource.
So just a couple more questions and then we'll wrap things up here. But I'm going to condense this next question a little bit. I want to focus on just one particular thing. So what was the primary challenge that you faced throughout your career getting to where you are? And how did you overcome that?
One? Just one.
Just one. Yeah. I mean, you can talk about as many as you want, I guess. But yeah, just kind of showing resilience in the face of these big challenges that you may face.
You go first.
Oh, well, I nearly quit the National Weather Service again when I had young children at home. Just with the shift work, and my husband was working at the time, it's very, very difficult. I also felt pretty isolated. in the Cheyenne office. I was the only female on rotating shift work, probably the only female with young kids at home, and trying to balance that. And I really went to go work with like kind of a coach to help me explore other career options. I didn't follow through with leaving the agency, for better or for worse. I mean, I'm here now and I'm happy in the role I'm in, but
Yeah,
you
I think it's
sometimes,
for better. I'm glad that you're still in the weather service.
but you wonder what else could have been. But and I hope I'm making a difference to the people that I work with today. I'd say another challenge is just kind of going from operational meteorologist to being in management can be a real challenge because it's, maybe you felt really comfortable in your role as a operational meteorologist. You knew exactly what you're going to do, but management throws you in situations that you're never quite prepared for sometimes. I mean, um, and what you might have to do and deal with. So I think those are probably two of the biggest challenges I faced. Sometimes kind of losing my confidence in when those challenges come and kind of, you know, wrestling with that a little bit. How do I get my confidence back? How do I get my level of job satisfaction back? And that really is up to me, to find those answers. And um, so I think that's pretty much it for me. But I do love the weather service to the core of who I am. I mean, it jives with my core values of service. I feel it's where I can be in a role that makes a difference to the public and to our partners, um, and not like a profit driven motive. I mean, I understand that we live in a capitalist society, but during severe weather, there's no place I'd rather be than sitting in that chair and helping issue warnings or contacting spotters and getting the word out to the public. That to me is just a job well done. So despite the challenges, I'm still here and I still love it. And I hope I'm serving others well.
Oh no, I gotta make mine as good. It's gonna be hard to follow.
It's okay. It's not a competition. So
I guess challenges I faced. I'm still early in my career, so they might be a little minuscule, but still, I guess working with different people from different backgrounds. I came from a place from the South. I just everyone kind of knew like each other. They kind of knew like how to talk to each other differently. So it was a whole adjustment moving to Colorado, Wyoming, meeting different people, being in a government office, being in a government office and like kind of working in a different environment with different ages, different like backgrounds, different like all different stuff. So that was new to me. That was a little bit of a challenge getting used to. Like, oh, this person wants to have their coffee before they talk to me. So let me first wait for that, which is fine, but we're all kind of getting used to that. So that was a challenge for me. And then moving out here, kind of following my dream job, and then figuring out how to navigate where I live now, because it's not like Georgia where, oh, there was block parties, there was things to go do. Like most people hike here, most people go rowing or skiing or snowboarding. I've never done that before in my life. So I was trying to get used to those things. And I think I found a solid like group of community. I found the things I like to do. I don't like to do the 10-mile hike. I like to do the scenic 1-mile hike where it's like next to the parking lot. I don't want a 12,000 elevation gain. I don't need that. So I kind of figured out the things I like to do, and it was an adjustment, like figuring that out. And like you probably experienced that moving different states. Like it was just different overall, just different. So I figured it out now. I think I'm good, but there are not things in life to teach you that. So you got to kind of figure that out on your own. Like my dad was like, oh, you'll figure it out. And I did. It took a while. But those are challenges starting a new job and being in a new environment. So I would say that was a big deal because I was at the point where I was like, am I in the right place? Is this meant for me? Am I like supposed to be here? And it took a while for me to learn that, yeah, I may be different, but I am supposed to give my different skills in this environment and I'm supposed to be here. So it just took a lot of self-reflection and crying and anger and all of that. I had to go through all that, but now I got it. I'm good now. So I think that was the challenge for me. Yeah.
Yeah, feeling like you belong. I mean, I definitely went through that too. Maybe not in the exact same way, but being one of the only female, all those milestones where you're like the only, the only
There
gets a little tiring.
I also get tired of that too. The only Black girl, the only like that happens all the time. So, but I'm glad we made it here because our skill sets, I say that in my mind all the time. I'm like, well, I'm glad that I'm here. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that like there's certain people in our office with certain skill sets because we wouldn't be able to get through the things that we need to serve the community for if we didn't have the people that we did.
Right.
So that is the really good part. And I'm not just talking, like, I really mean that because there are times where I'm like, I don't know if we're going to make it. And we made it because we had those people. So, yeah.
No, so beautifully said by both of you. So I appreciate that. I just have one final question, then I'll let you each have a final word as well. But it's looking to the future here. So let's say we have students watching who may be interested in getting a job in government meteorology or specifically with the National Weather Service. What sort of advice would you have for them in terms of applying, getting in, and what to expect in the years and decades to come?
Ooh. What do you think? Give me the answer.
Well, I think you need to go in with eyes wide open, about the shift work and the demands of the job. But I also think that what we're doing today is not what we're going to be doing in 3 years or 5 years. I think it's going to change. I think we have to change in order to better meet the needs of our partners and better serve our younger meteorologists today. I don't think we can have the same paradigm and expect to have the caliber of folks working in our agency as we have had the fortune of having. I think to really be open to every opportunity. I think that's one thing that I tried to do during my career. I really watched all the vacancies and looked at them and gave them at least half a second of consideration. If it was worth more than that, I'd bring him home. We'd talk to my husband. He did not like moving. So every move that we made was really hard on him, and he accommodated my career. But, fortunately, some he gave thumbs up, some he said, no, we're not doing that. But really be open to every opportunity that comes your way and just keep pushing, be self-motivated, be self-driven, because I think that takes you a lot further than kind of sitting back and waiting for your dream job to come your way. Because I think what you want to do is demonstrate that, I am the person that you want to hire for this job when that dream job comes open, and this is why. So that's what I would recommend. I hope that makes sense.
It does. Yep.
I'm going to steal some of that from you because it's true. Because I guess I wouldn't be where I am now if I didn't if I waited for that dream job, like, oh, I'm going to be a meteorologist in Atlanta. Like, that was not in the cards for me. Maybe I thought it was, but I wouldn't be the meteorologist I am now if I didn't go to Wyoming, if I didn't go to Boulder, because I wouldn't have the skill sets that I've learned over the years if I just started in Atlanta. So maybe I could, but I don't think it would be the same. I wouldn't be the same like meteorologist. So I think if you are a student, number one, just be ready to go anywhere, be open to like making community where you go, so you can have that like family, because your family might not be in Colorado or Wyoming. And then kind of, oh, I guess making sure someone looks at your resume, that's a big deal. I even asked Jennifer to look at my resume because sometimes it looks rough. Like, so it's good to have someone who's in the field looking at your resume. And then I guess the only other thing I would say is you don't have to know what you want to do, I guess. Like, your first job isn't the one and done final job. Like, you don't have to like be in this job for 20 billion years. I know some people love being in their job for 20 billion years, but you don't have to be in this role forever. It's just like the stepping stone to something else. You could like hurricanes one day, and then you can like wildfires the next day. So it could be so different within a year or two. So just go with what you like at first, but open your mind to different stuff for sure. Yeah.
And I want to add one more thing. You know, the resume gets you in the door, but practice your interview, know what you want to say in an interview, because the interview, you need to know what you say once you're in that door. We've had a lot of people interview for positions, and I came away somewhat disappointed in their interviews, and I really wanted to hear more from them. So I think it's really critically important to practice interviews and do that, you know, be ready for that and sell yourself. Sometimes it's hard to do that, but definitely you want to take that opportunity to set yourself apart from the other competition. And the way you can do that is by being prepared for that interview.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, very well said. I know that I had to practice interviews a lot before I applied to intern spots. Well, when it was an intern spot back in the National Weather Service, because I practiced some interviews with the science and operations officer over in Raleigh, and they were pretty bad. So I'm glad that he took a lot of time in training me and kind of bouncing ideas off me, so that I was able to succeed when I needed to, when it mattered. And really great points there about, you know, the job that you take isn't the last in line. There's always going to be more opportunities that come up, probably opportunities you aren't even aware of at the current time, or that may not even exist at the current time. As you said, Jennifer, things are going to be changing a lot here in the next few years. And just looking back over the last few years, there are certain jobs within the National Weather Service that didn't exist before that are now coming out. So there'll be much more of that. Going to be a lot of vacancies and opportunities coming up in the Weather Service. So if you are interested in the Weather Service, it's a good time to be looking at jobs there. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ayesha and Jennifer. Was there anything either of you want to say that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
I can't think of anything. I know you guys post the openings when they come out, so like feel free to follow this board on LinkedIn, because I've seen them post the openings every time. They usually bid them all in one go, right? So
And they're not doing that quite so much anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're splitting them up now.
Oh, okay. So maybe there's even like more cycling through.
Things in the hiring world constantly change in the Weather Service, constantly.
Sometimes it's not even the Weather Service. Sometimes it's just
everywhere.
hiring.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and if you are interested in Weather Service jobs, even if we don't post them, you can always go on to USA Jobs, create an account, and get some notifications, email notifications whenever there is a new listing. That's a good way of doing it as well, just so you make sure you don't miss anything for those prospective folks out there. All right. Well, do you mind if folks contact you if they have any questions for you specifically? I could put your email addresses down on the screen. Okay. Yeah, I'll put it down in the corner. I'll try to match it up perfectly to when you point it at the screen. Yeah, very cool. All right. Well, thank you so much again for your time. Really appreciate it. Great talking to you both.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Yep, and just to wrap up, again, my name is Keith Sherburn. I'm the chair of the AMS Board for Operational Government Meteorologists, and this was the latest installment in the Origins series. Hoping to have at least a couple more by the end of the year. So thanks so much.